Next, I'm sowing the sweet peppers, the California Wonder, and yeah, here's the seeds here. You can see them. They're pretty big. Now, one thing I just wanted to mention, and I'll show some videos of this later in the season, but every year I dig up 2 or 3 of my sweet pepper plants and chili pepper plants and take them inside. I cut them right back and take them inside for the winter and overwinter them because believe it or not, they are perennials, and that means that they live in their native land more than 1 year, for several years actually. So by taking a few of them inside for the winter and keeping them alive, come spring, I've got a fairly mature plant that I can put either outside in the ground or in the ground in my greenhouse, and I can have peppers much earlier in the season than starting these from seed. So with these I'm going to sow 2 rows of these, and as you can see, you know, this is not conventional, I suppose, this sowing all of these seeds so close together in a small space, because you do run the risk of things going wrong in here with overcrowding. But I do this every year, and as long as you monitor any potential problems and keep on top of it, it's usually fine. You just have to keep an eye on everything, make sure everything's growing well, look at them every day. Anytime you see something funny going on, quickly get in there and pull out any seedlings that look a little bit yucky. Have some organic fungicide or pesticide. One of the problems that I run into every year, especially with this seed mix or any other potting soil or compost that is sphagnum peat moss based, is the fungus gnats and fruit flies, or maybe they're both the same thing, I'm not quite sure. They love to lay their eggs in anything sphagnum moss based. So keep an eye on that. If you see those little black insects flying around, they've laid eggs in here, and their little babies, the little babies, they burrow around inside of the compost, and they actually eat the roots of the seedlings. So you have to be looking out for those, because that is something that happens, especially indoors. Okay, so I've sown some of these bell peppers. We're sowing the Hungarian yellow wax chili pepper, and again, I got these from the dollar store. There's quite a few seeds in there. So I was going to say, with the chili peppers and the eggplants, they are usually pretty slow to germinate. They take a while, and in my experience, they're pretty slow to grow initially, unless you have really good warm, a really good heating mat. My heating mat stays at it's around 70-75, and so they tend to grow a little bit slower, but I don't mind that, because if they grew too fast, I wouldn't have any place to put them in my house where it would have enough heat and light. So I'm okay with them growing a little bit slower. I know it's not perfect. Plants always do. You always end up with better plants if they grow fast from the start. So it's just one of these things that I have to weigh up, and you know, I've only got so much space in my mud room, so I just have to do what I can, and you know, it's just the way that it is for now. here's the habanero chili pepper seeds. Oh, what was I gonna say? So yeah, I was saying that you know, this isn't the most ideal. If I had a big heated greenhouse where I could put each individual seed into an individual module, and the greenhouse was a nice 80 degrees all the time, I mean, that obviously that would be ideal, but I don't have those conditions, so I'm just making do with what I have. I do have a greenhouse, but it's not heated. I can't afford that. It would cost a fortune, and it's not really, I don't know. In my climate in New York State, it's just not worth it to heat a big greenhouse for this kind of thing. It's not financially, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense in my climate. So I just do what I can. And you know, if you've got just an area where you can put some plant lights, and buy one of those heated seed mats on Amazon or wherever, you know, that's good enough. You can fit, like in this size tray, you can fit a lot of potential food plants in this one tray. So yeah, it's just making do with what you have, being creative, thinking about what you can do with the space that you've got. Okay, so next up I'm going to be sowing these Gerber Daisies, and it's called Cartwheel Strawberry Twist Mix. And like I said in one of my previous videos, I used to be a florist, and in the florist world, Gerber Daisies are used a lot, and they're not the cheapest flower either. So these are kind of interesting. Look at those. I don't know if you can see those. They're kind of, I don't know. They're not super tiny, but they're pretty tiny. So I'm not gonna bury these too much. Like I said before, you don't want to bury them too deep. Not the small ones. Because these are tiny, you just want to barely cover them with the soil. So I'm just going to put these down the row and cover them barely. So I'm just gonna do that, just a little bit. You don't want them to show through the soil, but you just want to cover them a little bit. Okay, next one, another packet of Gerber Daisies. These are a little bit different. It's just called Hybrids Mix. And again, with these are, I don't know if these are tropical, but they are tender perennials anyways. Normally you would buy them in a nursery or a garden center, and you kind of just treat them as an annual. You let them grow for a season, and then you let them die. If you live in a cold area, or where you get cold winters, they die normally, and that's that. But you can, because they're perennial, if you want to, and you're buying these plants from the garden center before it gets cold or before you get a frost, you can take them indoors if you've got suitable light and warmth in your house. You can do that. But yeah, so I'm sowing these. These are little seeds, so I'm not going to cover them too much. But there's a lot of seeds in this packet. I'm not going to sow all of these. I'm going to keep a few back in case some of these don't germinate, or the germination rate isn't good, or whatever. If something goes wrong, then I've got a few left that I can re-sow in the spring when it's warmer in the green. I'll put them in the greenhouse. So yeah, I've just done two rows of those, and I'll put the rest back in the seed packet and save those for later, just in case they don't germinate. Okay, I think I've still got an area over here where I haven't sown any seeds, and I think I'm gonna leave that area for the other seeds that I'm waiting for in the mail. I haven't received all of my seeds, and I'll just go around and cover up what I have done so far. I think I'll start another trench here for the next lot of seeds that I get, and also so that I know where to sow next. So I'm just going to lightly cover these small seeds, these Gerber seeds. I'm just going to lightly cover them, and I don't compress the soil when I sow the seeds, because the soil is going to compress on its own every time you water it. So I'm just barely touching this. Just to cover the seeds. I don't want to compress it. I want to keep the air pockets in there. The particles of this soil is very fine anyway, so you don't want to compress it, because you might take out some of the air pockets, and the roots of seedlings, they need air. So you don't want to deprive them of oxygen, because they're not going to grow very well. So I'm just going to cover them really lightly, and I'm not going to water these, actually, because if you remember at the beginning, I put the compost in a tub. I put it in this tub here, and I pre-moistened it. So it's this soil is very, very barely moist. There's hardly, I didn't add very much water at all. It's almost, I wouldn't say it's dry, but it's not even damp. It's just barely moist. And that's on purpose, because there's a tendency for people to overwater their seeds, especially in the beginning. The seedlings, if they get overwatered, a lot of these, their roots cannot tolerate the extra moisture, and they will just rot. So I found that the drier, at least to begin with, at least to just get them started, germinated, the drier side is better for starting seeds. So okay, I was just going to say that these two seed packets, I forgot to mention. I'm going to sow these, but these are Peruvian lilies, or alströmerias. And again, these are another florist type flower. And but these need 3 weeks of cold treatment. So I'm going to put these in a plastic bag and put them in the fridge for 3 weeks. So that's how that goes. So just to bear in mind that, when you buy seeds, you want to read the packets, because especially some of the unusual things like these, if you're growing flowers or anything unusual, read the packets, do some research on Google or YouTube on how to germinate them, because some of them, like these need, you can't just sow these straight into a like what we're doing here and put it on a heat pad, because they're not going to germinate. They won't germinate. These ones won't germinate unless they go through a period of cold. So just bear in mind that every seed type you get, you can't just assume that you can treat every seed the same as the others. And one last thing. Now that I've got all of these seeds in here, I'm going to put a humidity dome over the top. And this is actually, I've had this for years, and like I said, I reuse everything. This is one that I got years ago. It's a one that you can get in the usually like Walmart or Ace Hardware. It usually comes with like a kit for sowing seeds. It's just a simple humidity dome. I'm going to put that right over the top of this. And that's going to keep the moisture in, and help the seeds to germinate.